everybody. Hello, Fernando. Hello, Danny. Hello, Casey. So, Kalpana, we have usually people, as you know, our members are from different countries and continents. So we have Danny here from Malaysia, and Casey is from Malaysia, and we have Cristanto from Indonesia, Fernando from Brazil. Not sure, Asma and Gangadhar, where you are right now. Let us know, write in the chat basically where you are based right now and all this. And Jin Hong, who is our partner from South Korea. Perfect. Okay, we'll wait from others because as you'll see, the people are from different continents. For some it's very late, for some it's very early. So some have the urge to start and then some would like to start a little bit later, you know. Okay, so Wanda from Bermuda is joining. Great, we have people from India. Okay, let's start with the video.
Hello, my name is Hitendra Patel. I'm the Managing Director of the Global Innovation Management Institute. I'd like to welcome you and join our vision and our mission of the Institute. Our vision is to democratize innovation everywhere, in organizations like universities or corporations, in high schools, in governments. And the idea is to unleash that creativity across the globe. Our mission is much more simpler: to train 1 million people worldwide, certify them, and unleash their creativity and their problem-solving skills to target any problem on this planet. The Global Innovation Management Institute has got certifications for individuals, for corporations, as well as for the government. And the whole idea over here is through certifications, people have the right to practice innovation. Through certifications, we create a roadmap for how to get better and improve as we get level 1 certificate to level 2 to level 3. We are today working with the Dubai government, the Qatar government, across Colombia, in Brazil, in the United States, helping these institutes and these countries become better in terms of their innovation journeys. We're working with corporations, giving them roadmaps, how they can go from level 1 to level 2. And we're giving certificates to individuals as they go from level 1, 2, 3, and 4 in terms of how they can actually innovate themselves, how they can innovate in teams, and how they can innovate in a company.
We've worked with several innovation consultancies, and we found the GIMI methodology to be able to help us democratize innovation very quickly across large groups of people.
Curriculum isn't enough anymore. We need to really be finding ways to expand the school into the community and bring the communities into the school. And design thinking and the GIMI impact model is what's going to help do that. I think that we really need to start looking for authentic, experiential learning opportunities for our students. And this is a really great framework that teachers can use that makes it easy to do.
The value that we see being part of the GIMI program is that we can offer capability building for students, for professionals, for corporations, and that's really exciting to be able to create a language that can help everybody connect with what strategic innovation is.
Today we've got 25 countries who are partners of the Global Innovation Management Institute. We'd like to see all 195 plus countries becoming part of this institute. So we are looking for training partners across the globe. We're looking for university partners in every one of those countries so they can be part of our network. And we would like to see companies and corporations around the world all embracing the certification programs of GIMI. And as a result, we can target any problem and we can solve any problem. Join us on our mission through certificates to give people the right to practice and a roadmap of how to improve.
Great. Welcome back, everyone, to our weekly exploration of innovation. I'm Marilla, I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join us as we continue the journey of innovation into emerging trends, best practices, global innovation activities. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Kalpana. She's the founder and CEO of Data Glue Consulting. She's a member of US ISO Technical Advisory Group. And she will talk today about a very interesting topic and important one in today's world, which is generic data innovation framework with a use case. So before I'd like to present right now Kalpana. Let me share her bio, and please, if you can spotlight her, great. So as I mentioned, she runs a consulting firm, and she has been all the time very immersed into all the activities of ISO. She is an IT executive, basically, and business problem solver. She has used technology, and she has worked in this field in private and public sector over 30 years. And since in the beginning of her career, she had a deep passion of that, and she will tell us a little bit more about it. She is basically has several certificates and sits in several groups like Scaled Agile, PMI. She has also served at PMI Washington DC for 9 years. She had taught in a business school. She's certified basically as Scaled Agile practice consultant, as GIMI certified level 3, as PMI. CSM, data analytics, and all these great certifications. So she knows very well the data, she knows very well project management, and she knows very well innovation. She holds a bachelor in computer science and technology from Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology, and an MBA as well from Kelley School of Business, Indiana University. So Kalpana, welcome today. It's a great joy to have you with us. And before we dive into the presentation and the topic of today, I'd like to kick off with a quick question, basically, to get the conversation flowing. So can you tell us a little bit more, how did your passion started with data? Basically, what's the story behind that?
So first, I think the first job in my career was in a company which built register. In the store, retail store, issue those registers. So I learned all the basic things in there. But while I was learning all those very basic things, how to build a cash register and all those, was not so much about the data. I didn't like the job. I left that, and I joined another company. And then where actually I found out about data is something that is in every basic things what we do, is when I started working in MCI back in early 90s, I think 1994. So if anybody was there during that time, you'll see that the MCI started giving the different types of plans, and I was a pure developer. Our friends and family was one of the plan, and we used to build the applications. Actually, I was part of those the development team, the developer building the applications for residential customers, as well as later on I built for the corporate customers also. So after we build the friends and family, the application which will be used by the customer service rep, it was launched, and I asked my boss that I want to go to the call center and I see how our application is being used. And he immediately said, yes, go. So I went to Denver call center, and I sat with the customer service rep. And when the call came, I was also taking another line from headset, and I was in listening mode. And call came, and the service rep, he picked up, if I remember his name, I think his name was most likely Frank. He picked up the call, and it was an old lady who called about, she had billing concern about her, bill. And then she talked about that her cat is not feeling well, and she is lonely, she felt lonely, she lives alone, etc. And the Frank was very, very empathizing her along the way. And the call was half an hour, believe it or not. And while this is going on, one thing actually struck my head is that the lady was alone, and friends and family, the plan was you could describe 10 members of, in your circle that you could call unlimited. During that time in 1990s, the every minute was actually charged. And it was perfect plan for her so that she could actually call as long as she needs to. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper and give it to Frank that why not you actually picture the friends and family plan, because even it's a few dollar extra, it will help her a lot. And he did, and she accepted. And that data point that she was alone, it was nowhere. It was nowhere in our domain, not in our thought, and it was nowhere we're capturing even in the application. So I went back and I talked about it. And that was the beginning, that there are so much of data there, data points out there, we don't know. And if we could capture those, we could actually improve other people's life. It's a win-win situation. At the same time, we got the new customer, but it was very helpful for her. So that was the beginning of my passion about data. What data we don't see it, and what data we could actually generate, which will create values, new values.
Great, Kalpana. Thank you for sharing that. And I believe we'll hear more how data actually strengthen innovation processes or feed innovation frameworks. So without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes.
So while I kept working in the big corporations, one thing I noticed, as I mentioned, that the data, it kept coming back to my mind, is that which data is hidden and which data can be created and definitely adds value. So there is a couple of the concept, couple of techniques that the thought process, which was helping me to get those data out. This is talking to the customers. Yes, that's definitely it triggered in my mind. But there is a thought process. How do we identify? So this generic data innovation framework is actually just a result of that thought process, and how I utilized that once I found out that I repeated the process and obtained the results. So we'll talk about that. So what is data innovation framework? It's a just flexible framework. It's an approach to create new data products. I consider all of the data is actually data products because it has a life cycle, and which create new values, of course. If the data doesn't have any value, why do we even spend time on that? And it has 5 components that I see those in order to create or generate or discover, identify the new data points. The 5, pretty much 5 steps, 5 components, if we go through, we would be able to get to it. And then 2 guiding principles. Let's talk about the 2 guiding principles, why those 2 are very important. First principle is everything is data, our mindset. Many times we too often say that, oh, we can't have that, we can't measure that, that's not possible. It's actually our mindset that stops us. If we think about everything is data, and I see it over years of my 30 years of career, I have seen that many times we created the new data, converted things, translated things that we didn't think about that it is possible. I'll give you lots of example of that. For example, when restaurants business, customers are happy, we had all those traditional way of collecting data, survey, and all those to find out whether the customer happy or not. But real time, when customer is talking about the food in the restaurant, eating, or they're smiling, or what's their mood, If we captured that, that's a data, that real-time data that tells exactly whether customer happy or not, satisfied or not. So that's a smile. It could be just a smile. It's a positive comments. And those are also data points. And the principle number 2 is not all data are tangible. Just the example I just talked about right now is the smile. It's not tangibles, but it's a data products. So everything I see is a data, but that data points might not be tangibles. For example, smile. The smile could be sarcastic. Smile could be a sad smile. Could be a very, happy smile, or could be just a formal smile, right? So, but it could be a qualifier, or it could be as itself is the data points. So it's a data products, everything, every single data, but might not be tangible. So it's like opening up our mind and look into based on guiding those two principles, and we can actually see how we can see more meaningful data to generate, create, or finding. And question is that why it is so important? Well, I'm passionate, but why it is so important? Well, I kind of summarized all of it in there's too many of them. Why it is important? First of all, is definitely it helps us to find hidden facts, and we'll go over the use case, how it actually helped me many times. And one of the use case we'll be discussing today to bring the hidden facts. It also helps us to learn the new insights. And you think about a generative AI today, or adaptive AI, or with AI, what we're doing, we're finding insights. We're generating actually data. Creating, exploring new things is another. Whenever we try to explore new things, we need data to explore, because data gives us the facts. So we convert the facts into data. So if we can create the data based on what happened, that's the facts. And lastly, the simplify our lives. When we have data, we talked about data, everything is based on data. It simplifies. There's no assumption unless the assumption is not validated, then assumption is not a fact. So it simplifies our lives whenever we based on things, the decisions or whatever we do is based on data. So I think it's a broad sense. It has lots of in every single sector I looked into, health sector or finance or media, everywhere the data is the vital. So this particular generic concept, the framework, it's a generic, it needs to be in an ecosystem. That ecosystem, it's an innovation ecosystem, could be and within that, I drill down more as a data innovation ecosystem, because data itself requires lots of things. And in a small company, you will think, do I have to have all of it? No, you practice actually most of it. In a large corporation, you practice in a different way, means everything has to be documented, communicated, everything has to be a proper process in place. But in small company, you practice it anyway. You think about an example, data infrastructure. You do have to have it in wherever, in a small, large, medium, every corporation. If you are dealing with data, definitely you have to have that. Data access and sharing, there's a lot of rules and regulation you need to follow around it, so it has to be in there. Innovation culture, it's a tremendously needed in any innovation ecosystem. Regulatory ethical framework, and every country has its own. So regulatory, definitely that framework needs to exist there. And then it has all of it, and data lifecycle management, that's the whole 9 years about dealing with data sourcing, data quality, data stewardship, you can name it, data security, data governance, data literacy, and data, of course, leadership. So this concept, this generic data innovation framework, sits inside this data innovation ecosystem or innovation ecosystem, either way. But innovation ecosystem, a component of that is a data innovation ecosystem because it does require this particular things. These are all those essential elements in there. So I would say that the concept of generic data innovation framework resides inside your own innovation ecosystem. The 5 components are data discovery, data invention. I call it invention instead of saying innovation in that because it's a creation. It's a creation of unknown or creation of completely new generated data. Data gluing, you not to confuse with integration. When we do integrate data, we bring in different data from different sources, we create different pipelines. We'll be talking about that data gluing means we're combining those data, the pre-existing or existing data with the new data. That's why I call it gluing. It's not to confuse it. Data analytics and insights, that's the modeling part of, which is very common right now. There's tons of products out there based on AI or without, before even AI, it's so popular. We have used that a lot. Different types of correlation, more on manual sites and based on our values and etc. And data visualization, finally actually looking into the data and determining its the value, whether we shall continue using it or dispose it. So in the discovery the stage of that, what we do is we bring in the data sources from, data from different data sources and curate the data. And this is a common practice, I think, everywhere it has existed, more or less. And more we do the curation, we create the complete, accurate, conformed, I would say unique, connected, and lineage accurate. That's very important data. And some of the things we will be looking into that is the core information, like, in a customer, how do we identify the customer? If the customer identifier is missed, what do? We reject that data, right? So it's a very common one. And some common data is missing. Some cases that if their customers, some of the certain customers, valuable customers, is not in the database, it didn't come through or missing some way. So we have to make sure that those nuts and bolts are in place to capture those data, to bring those data. So it's a completeness, accuracy, uniqueness, conformity, lineage, whether it's linked, connected or not, relationship. Those would be things that we definitely first discover during the discover phase and complete the data accurately. Now, there are 2 different techniques is used. There are multiple techniques out there that we could use to identify new data or identify the existing data, but it's a hidden data or create new data. There are 2 different techniques I will be talking today. There are multiple ones there. These 2 actually I found it and it's kept using it, and I found the results out of it. It's enormously valuable. One is unknown data thinking and identifying. When I say unknown data thinking, basically finding out the hidden facts. It's out there. We're just not aware of it. So how do we identify those? I use those, the old time that with the, back in 1990, 90s, when there is no graph database. Now we have graph database. We can actually plot it and easily can find out this missing relationship. Whenever we see this missing relationship within those data, there is something. We ask ourselves those questions. Is there any possible cause and effect between those 2 data points? If there is a cause and effect, we know for sure, but there is no link. There is no connectivity in the data. We don't see any correlation. Something is missing. Some data points is missing. We need to look into it. Also, is there a dependency? If the dependency, we know, it's in our knowledge, we know this happens, there is a dependency. But when we looked into the data points, we don't see it. So something is missing. So there is a hidden data in there. Can we find the required data to establish those relationships? Then we find out that how we can actually, what we need to do to bring that hidden data live, means to in front of us. So we can use that connectivity, build this connectivity and see it is more meaningful or not. So that's a simple technique, and the way I used it here is the old technique for plotting it by domain, looking into the data points and see where is my unknown, where is something might be there. And in old days we used to do correlation and then see the R value, and whenever there is no correlation we used to add a L variable and see whether it builds in a relationship. That L variable is nothing but hidden data points. So this is an old technique that which used in, you could use in a small company. You have not much of data, you can use it, but now is graph database there is a better way to find out those missing connections. This one is more on generating new data. For example, in an LLM, we're using tons of new data points. How do we actually find out what we need? Which data points we need? Is there any new data points out there that we can get it or we can create it? How do we do it? So it's a universal thinking, universal data thinking, focusing on data part it, and then create it. So if you think about our whole universe, there is a sun and all the planets around it. That's why I call it universal thinking. We focus who we serve, which is say, for example, here I have it is customers. And then you think about each of those domains that's serving your customers. Domains is nothing but is your in your own business. Each of the different business units could be, so for example, a CRM, customer relationship management. That's one of those domain. And then that, how it actually relates to the customer. I'm sorry. So looking into the domains, you actually pick up your domains, different domains that you're working with your customers. And then you think about all the different possible scenarios, how from each of these domains you serve your customers. And each of the scenarios, when you think about it, how I serve my customers, do you have all the data points you need in order to serve those customers? And that gives you the thought, what do you need? It opens up the completely new thing. And you remember the principal guidance, everything is data, everything is possible as translate into data. So when you think about it, how do I serve my customers in this scenario? How do I serve this customer? Then you think about what data point do I need it? And that gives you, it might not exist today. That gives you the thought, what data do you need to generate? LLM is a perfect example of innovation when it actually started with that kind of thought processes, that what do we need to, what data point we did need it, and it has tons of data in there in order to generate the final products of innovation, but it has tons of new data in it. And the next step, we do the gluing of existing. We do a baseline. It's very important whenever we create new data or discover new hidden data, whether it's a useful ones or not. And in some business it might be useful, some other business might not be useful. So we do baseline with our existing data sets, and then we use the new one, because in order to generate or in order to use, we need to have the process to be established in it, whole 9 yards in the ecosystem. It has to be built. So we need to do the prototype to bring it and glue it together, and then see what value it actually do. So we do a pilot run on that and see what's the value it's actually we get out of it. Insights is the modeling part of it, analyzing those glued new and existing data together and model it. Which again, going back to AI, but during that time, which I've used this, I will talk about it. We did modeling with using the SPSS tool, and those not LLM. Model for specific desired outcomes, and that's your new data. From the scenario that you needed to, that's your desired outcome that you need to have that data points. And test run for accuracy. Each model has to have a pilot run to check the accuracy. And then finally, at the visualization phase, we actually interpret that into dollar or benefits, right? I would say that even when we say that we can't measure this is a qualitative, every qualitative measurement also can be translated certain ways to quantitative, because we just don't have the process to translate that. So if we can, and then we do a cost analysis, so they really needed to do it, or you don't need to translate it in quantity. That's where I think we stop. We say, okay, this is qualitative, this is quantitative. In this phase, actually, we look into that, what's the new revenue is coming from each of those domains, and domains where we use those new data or discover those new data, and then benefits aspect of it, each of those, how we used in which particular benefits on the customer segment, because we are talking about we are serving customers here. So this example actually given on that. So let's look into the one use case. This was the use case is Nextel back in 1987. Nextel was first built. It used to call Fleet Call, and then 1993, it changed to Nextel. And I joined Nextel, I think 1997. And then we went through the Y2K, if you all remember. Y2K program was done. And then we had Nextel had the identity technology used in there. And then walkie-talkie was becoming very popular. And then the call, we're giving the long distance call. While walkie-talkie, that, it used to work in different frequency, was very successful, we used to get a lot of complaints for customers that their call was dropping, when they're very important call in business call in the morning or in their driving, right? And call is dropping. So that actually brought the question in my mind is that, how do we find out why the call is dropping? What is out there happening? So the engineers will be scratching their head and looking into maybe where this customer is going while this call drop. And maybe the cell was not, working, is damaged, or something happened with the cell, or something else, right? So that questions brought up a lot of questions in my mind, that why this is happening. So I had started having this discussion with my boss, saying that, what information do we need? Then I came to know that call detail records, which is actually machine generated binary data, that used to go directly to our Nextel's vendor, which is initially was EDS and then Amdocs, used to take care of the billing. All we used to get from them is the customer and how many minutes they have used and what's the total bill. And that doesn't help us. That doesn't tell us that what the customer experience was. So I started thinking about it. Maybe there is something else is there. So I asked for that information, call detail records, the binary data. And we built our application to read those data. And I remember that time was Oracle's first Oracle version came, which actually support blob, but it was very slow. So we couldn't able to use that, no way. But we used our own application to have it, it's a fast, every 15 minutes, data is coming and translating that and keeping it flat files and shorted order such a way that it can be retrieved immediately. So it's all binary data saved in binary forms, flat files. we built that application to have 15 minutes refresh of call detail records. So what was in the call detail records? So I started looking into it. Didn't know much about it. Bunch of unknowns. So I went to Motorola headquarters to learn about ident technology, what's in their ident technology, what is generated in this call data, what those are meaning of those binary data. And that's where is actually the journey started with looking into, because when I place those data, that this is my data, I see a lot of unknowns there. The call tower locations, okay, we didn't have it, but now I see it's in call detail records, it is there. The tower locations, the cells longitude and latitude. Customer experience, customer dropping calls. Well, what data do I have that tells me? So that's the discovery part and thinking about what's in there. Another thing I did is that looking into our CRM side, and that just taking that domain, but we actually did many other domains that we'll go over. Just taking an example of the CRM domain. And I remember doing this exercise while I was in the class and saying that we have scenarios of this. Customer call, experience sudden disconnect, repeated, tried call again, unsuccessful, tried call again, unsuccessful. And then customer repeated drop and then try to connect again and it's successful. How do I know what was in the behind was happening? What tells me that? What data points do I need for that? So those are the scenarios, each of the scenarios, when this happened, I went to map to find out what data we have. So there's a hidden data that was discovered, number one. And then what we did with those hidden data, so call tower location was hidden data. Cause of the call end, that was hidden data to us. We discovered that in binary data. So it tells that the data, the call could be actually terminated. Terminated means is from one cell to one's other cell, the call is transferring, there could be a gap in there and it couldn't able to hand over the call properly. It's terminated. Can't help with that. So we'll talk about that. What is the solution of that? The other thing is that we might not have footprint in that area, so call is all of a sudden dropped, right? We're driving and call dropped. So that's another reason. So that reason is there, that there is no footprint, no service at all. It's a dead zone going there. Dropped call, or it's a normal call, the customer hang up, or the other person who called, that person hang up. So that's another. So cause of the call is another hidden data point that we discovered. And then we glued together call tower locations, our cause of the call end, and the customer information. Now we are looking into what do we get out of this? What we could get the insights from it. So two important things we did. There are tons of other things we did. But there are two stand out, which helped a lot both way, company and the customer. One was sub-based customers. Who are our base customers in terms of the revenue, the dollar? So there are big corporate business customers who are paying, they have tons of units, 10 units, 20 units, and construction businesses, many, many units, right? Because we have a walkie-talkie that could work from one end to another end within the United States. So those are high-paying customers. And if they are having worse experience, constantly their call is dropping, their call is disconnected. How do we actually find out who are they? And we were able to find out that. That was a very meaningful insights. And what we did with that is we proactively find out what was the cause, and then we proactively actually treated them. So that's another part of it, what we did after that. The bad handsets. So if the sale was okay, there is full coverage was there, everything was good, then why the quality dropped? So that's question brought up, is that handset could be bad, right? So that time the quality check, the handset could be bad. So we found out, and we did actually model. We partnered with another marketing group, and did the modeling. Actually, who was supposed to be talking to with me today is a Chris. He actually did the modeling to find out if this is truly a bad handset issue or not. And we ran a test run too, and the percentage of the accuracy was very high, above 90, 95 or 6, I think. So when we had those two big insights, we were able to proactively take care of our customers. We proactively went and replaced their handsets who are high-paying customers. We proactively went and let them know that we know what their experience is and we're working on it. So that two insights, it's this insight new in, I would say, new created data was extremely valuable for the company. And there are quite a few other also. So in the visualization in this phase, now we actually sum up in each of those different domain, what we did with it, with those new data, how we used it. CRM, definitely, we talked about it. Marketing has, they have new initiatives on that to identify different customers and how to treat them proactively. Fraud detection, that's another thing. Some people are buying those phones, Nextel phones, and then crossing over the border and using, because they're a cell tower, they're using these phones without being subscriber. So it's a fraud, one kind of. So we were able to detect that. Corporate compliance, definitely, we helped legal and all other aspect of that. And engineering, they were able to better capacity planning. They were able to find out where the gaps are, and also diagnostic, tool, as a diagnostic tool, what's going on. It was extremely helpful with the engineering tool also, and the social responsibilities. That's another big story about the social responsibility. 2001, 9/11. So that day, I do still remember, I was in Nextel headquarters, and around 9 o'clock or something, my boss came, and actually our VP, he had a handle TV, and he said that our tower on is down. It looks like it's intentional. So I was floor monitor. So immediately we evacuated and put everybody lockdown actually first, and then eventually evacuated all the buildings and everything, and came home and in the late afternoon. And that day was I think 8 o'clock, around 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. or so. I got a call from Eastern Region, the head engineering, and he actually asked me, is there something you can do to identify if there is any call is going out or in from under the debris? Is there any way you can find out anything? And that time the cells were not like today's cells, like has a humongous amount of life period. So every moment was like the most precious moment. So I remember, I think because we got hit here also in this area. So immediately I had to put in an action in plan, and then immediately looked into, and I said, okay, tower 1, tower 2, what's the closest, the cell towers we have in there, and pull up those information. And all through the night, I pulled that information. Every 15 minutes, it's refresh the data and generated the report. Any calls is going in and out of any of those Nextel phones on those cells. It's by the towers, the cells in the towers, that not the twin towers. I'm talking with cell towers. any calls is made that. And I don't know whether it saves any life or not, but that's tremendously, and those information was provided to depending on which side of those the calls are going under, where might be, under which side of the debris there were calls going on, means there was still someone is there. It was some
we
calls
are
were there, and then eventually in the morning there was no more calls. So that's the social responsibilities part of it. There is a big aspect of that too, and there are a few other story in there too. So when I looked into the benefits, while innovation itself, it takes much larger aspect. If you take the iPhone, the touchscreen, it has data points, right? The data points are created when the touchscreen is created, new data. So I see is the innovation is the results of combined values of each of the new created data points as well as the existing data points, whatever it is. See, it's a value of both. Innovations becomes possible because of those new data points that are being used, discovered or created, that brings the values. So that's pretty much the benefits. I would go and a long way to describe in the health sector, in finance, in media, how data points actually, the new data points are so important, and especially in during today's world, so authentication it's a big question right now. What is authenticated, what is authentic, what is not. So that's where the data points comes in, new data points comes in. That's pretty much it about the data innovation framework. Thank you all. And I also like to thank GIMI and HP for giving me the opportunity for sharing our thoughts. And it's always joy to share the ideas and thoughts.
So very good. That was a very exciting set of insights that you shared with us. And I want to, maybe you can stop presenting and have a quick, maybe 10 minutes discussion about what we just learned from your presentation. Okay? That's fine. I like the notion that as you get new data, innovation happens. That's really, that's the insight. That's the key insight that I'm trying to push on. And I'll use a different example. Today, there are more Gen Zs who are born with a whole bunch of allergies. So today, more Gen Zs have allergies about peanuts, from pineapples to this or that. And the reason isn't that they are whining and they are a generation who wants to have an allergy. It is the fact that we have got more data on analyzing people's health to identify correlations or relationships between certain foods and certain types of diseases, certain types of information that we didn't have before. Before, we just felt bad. And that was the word bad. But then bad was double clicked into, was it a headache? Was it a stomach ache? Was it something else? So we added more components to the word bad to understand that. And then we could double click on that to say, is there a solution for that, or a solution for that, or a solution for that? So as we break this word down, bad, into subcomponents, more opportunities for very nuanced innovation comes about. So that's my key takeaway. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you explained it very well. If I could drill down one phase down, so see, everybody's body's microbiomes is different. So when you say that I have peanut allergy and the other person has peanut allergy, could be very different reasons. It's not the same reason that why I have peanut allergy and he or she has peanut allergy, because our microbiomes is different. It depends on what other data points I have. Maybe I actually eat certain foods, I don't eat certain foods. Maybe I do something that he or she doesn't do it. That could be the reason, right? So we don't know what's the reason because we don't have enough data to establish the fact that this data, because of this, is causing allergy, peanut allergy to me, but not to him or to him. So it could be effect, cause and effect could be different for different data points, and we don't have enough.
Perfect.
You're absolutely.
I like that. And so I think that's the thing that everybody should be paying attention to, saying, as we do more research, as we learn about more things, there is a tree that breaks down further to understand even more nuance on this, where there might be a more insightful answer. But now let me ask you the other question. Big data, as we get more data, we are going to analyze it. And we have been using traditional approaches of analyzing data, which was all about hypothesis-based. And then based on that, you test some hypothesis with statistics or whatever, to today, where you throw all the data into an AI engine, and it looks for patterns and correlations much faster than human beings. And therefore, it's not hypothesis-based, it's based. And so, and it's not that you start off with a pattern that you believe exists, but a pattern that that it discovers. So how do you propose integrating this new way of looking at data to identify new patterns, to identify new data points, of course, as we go into the 21st century? Where AI, I've got people who are working in AI who don't understand hypothesis-based anymore. They don't even talk the way I used to talk in the past, saying, I believe there's a hypothesis, a correlation here, we might want to look for it. Now they're just saying, throw the data, and we'll tell you somehow there's a pattern. So how do you marry the two approaches to make sure we come up with insights?
I take it in a different approach on that. I think there is a two part of it. The hypothesis one is yes, and that's why the universal thinking comes. If you have the universal thinking, you are actually thinking this is a possible scenarios. That is not an hypothesis. You know that there is a scenario exist. That's fact. Now you don't have the data points. So you make it a hypothesis now that it could happen, and you try to find out what data I can actually create or generate. That's one point. The other side, what you're saying, throwing everything, the data in the AI and does it. It's not like that. AI is generated by, I call it NI, our natural intelligence. It's actually what the algorithm we're using for what purpose. It's not the AI is a generic thing. LLM, yes, it has some purpose, it has something, but we can't just throw the data to LLM and say that, can you do this? For example, reasoning, and it will find out lots of data that which we actually, our brain is limited on that it has the World Wide Web, that whole vast of data it feed into LLM. But our brain and I can't actually get all of those process access and process at the same time. So what we do is actually our limited resource in our brain. We do rationality, we do reasoning, which AI, LLM will not do reasoning. It will actually find the facts from somewhere. It will find the data with the fake or accurate or whatever, and then it will give us. So it looks like, yeah, AI is doing reasoning. It's not. So AI is how we are going to use it. So not just dumping the data and then saying that it will create the information what I want, or it will generate whatever I need. It depends on us what algorithm we'll be using. More and more new AI algorithms will be created and generated to new data. But it's a two different part. So one part is the universal thinking with the scenarios to bring new data using AI, so how we use the tool. Another part is that, yeah, we will give more data to it, and unsupervised learning will get to some other things in what we want and see what it does. But again, is limited with the algorithms that we'll be using.
No, very good. That's very helpful in this thinking. As we go into this more data and more analysis and all that, we face a bigger issue, which is much harder. I love the example of 9/11 that you presented, and Nextel. I worked with Nextel as a Motorola engineer, as a scientist. We worked with the iron phones, which is push talk, walkie-talkie. They worked for the police, for the security, even if towers fall down. It's a wonderful one-to-one communication system that was out there, right? I worked with a gentleman by the name of Peter Schwartz. Peter Schwartz is the guy who designed, he's got a company called Global Business Networks. And he would use hypothesis-based thinking to predict the future with tangible data and intangible data. And he predicted that there were about 20 ways terrorists will attack the United States. And in his list of things, as he prioritized the different ways the United States would be attacked, number 11 on the list was planes flying into towers, big skyscrapers. He predicted that, and this was work done with the FBI and CIA. The problem was it was number 11 on the list, and therefore the organization, FBI organization, who has to prioritize where to put its energy as how attacks will happen. So the data was uncovered. The problem was seen, but then there was the part where how do you prioritize things and how do you get people to engage, excite, align, and commit to the solution, which is the human part of this thing, versus the logic part that comes out. So logic is needed, is necessary. But what we find again and again is very hard for that logic to be seen by somebody else in the same way we see logic, because they choose assumptions, experiences, and they choose their own data sets also to get a different conclusion sometimes in the prioritization. So the question is, we just saw the debate yesterday, with the presidential debate. It wasn't about data, it was about opinions and facts, my opinion and your opinion. And so how do we get people in a world where data should be logical and acceptable, and it is the only answer and correct answer, and then people who are emotional, who then make decisions to do this? So how are you integrating data to getting human beings to understand that we should be a fact-based society versus in a logical society versus an emotional society based on my experience, which is not your experience? It's a question for you. It's $1 million question. I know that.
Thank you, HP, for asking that question. You brought a very good point, and this is where we are right now. And that's why I think the data is so important. So first question is that, how do we make it more factual? So Peter came up with the list of the things will happen. I would question that, how he came up with that first. So when we are coming up with a list of things could happen or might happen, etc., how do you see that? So because our innovative mind and your creative mind, in our imagination, we could think many things, and wrong things, worst thing, not wrong things, I would say the worst thing or good things, either way. If it is worst thing or good things, it is somebody else is taking that and making it happen. It becomes a fact, it becomes the data. But before that, when we're making those, it's an assumption. Whether Peter actually had some facts to come up with those ideas, or it is just assumption, it's just the creative ideas, that's what it matters. Now, people could take innovative ideas and creative ideas and make it happen. You call it a breakthrough innovation, but you could call about as a breakthrough worst thing happens, right? Like 9/11. As a breakthrough worst in our life, in our history happen. So it is actually someone's ideas is making it happen, then it's a data. Before that, there is no data, right? The data was, yeah, I wouldn't say there was no data. Data is the creative, whatever the thoughts, that is the data. So how do we make it more data centric, more fact centric, our life, and accurate? Not just the fake data, but its accuracy. That's where the authentication comes in picture. And that's where is the data, when we actually see anything and everything. If it happens in anywhere, we translate that and convert it to the data. That's where it matters. We make that facts. Anything we see or do or anything is happening, we convert that, translate to a data. That's everything is data. That's a fact. That's part of. Now, emotional part of it, if you think about it, this, you've given an example of that, somebody, maybe the Peter, whoever, I don't know whether this is the fact or not, took that, okay, this is the worst thing, list of things could happen to USA, took that 11 and then made it happen, right? I don't know what other, I actually, thank you for sharing. I never heard of that one, that somebody actually, Peter, came up with that. If somebody might be working on those to make it happen, and it makes it's a new data on that, then it becomes a fact. So that's emotional part of it. Is emotion is the data. the emotional part, the data is the emotion part, but the fact is what happened after that. So the fact is somebody has the emotion, that's data point is a fact. But when the cause and effect happen, new data is generated, new data happens, that's another data. So it's
Very
the
good.
both way. But authentication, I think the most important thing in our life right now. And how do we actually generate that data to be authentic? That's the challenge we have that we need to
Kalpana,
solve.
thank you very much for your participation on the Global Innovation Management Institute's
It's
weekly
my joy.
webinar on the
It's
think
my
tank.
joy. Thank you so much. Thanks to Irila. Thanks to Venetia. They worked so well and so diligently. I appreciate so much, very much. And thank you for the opportunity. It's a joy to share the knowledge.
It's great. So for the audience, thank you very much for joining us. This comes to the end of our session. We've been here for an hour. We meet weekly. We talk about innovation trends, innovation management, what's going on around the world. And our objective is to share best practices, new insights for you to be able to take and translate that into your work. We believe that our community that we're building is the community that we should use, because we believe alone we can do a lot, but together we can accomplish almost anything. And in the philosophy of GIMI, together we can. So please reach out to Kalpana. Today we learned about data, which generates new insights, and those insights generate new actions and new innovations, and using those things to make it real. Behind all of this thing is, of course, ultimately people have to accept the data and believe in the data. And this is the one challenge we'll be facing next in terms of what's next, what is truth, and how do we work with that. So with that, you guys, thank you very much, and tune in next week for our next speaker. Thank you, Kalpana, and thank you, team from GIMI, for organizing this every single week.